Hello and welcome to Glasgow Rangers Nation with me, your host Owen, the channel that brings you your team every single day. Daily news videos, updates, rumours, speculation, signings, hopefully more coming. Podcasts like the one that's coming up tonight at 7:30 with myself and Victoria Searle, Caroline Morrison and Marina Bannatyne from Heart and Hand. Add to that, obviously, live streams during the season and all this for the grand prize of absolutely nothing. All you got to do is hit the sub, ring the notification bell, and you'll never miss out on any of our uploads. But if you do want to join the channel, if you do want to show your support for your channel, get some shout outs, be mentioned on the homepage, then it's only 99 pence a month, which is less than a cup of coffee. You know, if you cup of coffee at McDonald's, a couple of quid, it's 99p to join the channel and show your support. Well, let's start off by talking about all things Rangers. Let's start off by talking about who has arrived, what we've still got to do, and talk about a couple of players that are obviously, where we have a situation of what is happening with players we actually own. Then we're going to talk a little bit about players that, have been rumoured to come to Rangers, where the situation is with them. Because after the news yesterday that broke that Cifuentes has turned down the chance to join Rangers, which was put in numbers of Italian news media sources, including well-respected ones, and obviously reported on British websites and well-respected British media outlets. Despite what some fans are saying, some couple of fans commented on the video yesterday saying fake news. Well, what I've got to say to them is, you obviously know more than Gazzetta dello Sport in Italy. You know more than Sky TV Italia. You obviously, you must have some sort of in, or you must be Cifuentes' best mate. I don't know. Let me know, guys. If you are, let me know you're Cifuentes' best mate. We know. Let's have a chat. But let's talk so far about the arrivals. So we've obviously signed Kieran Dowell, Dujon Sterling, Jack Butland, and Sam Lammers. They have come in to the club. Dowell can play right wing, left wing, central midfield, central attacking midfield. Sterling can play right back, left back. He can play centre half. Butland can play goalkeeper. Surprisingly, he's only got that one position. And Sam Lammers can play as a second forward and a forward, in a number of positions at the front of the team. So there's a lot of what we call hybrid players there who bring in multi-talents, multi-positional talents to the club. Obviously looking in particular, Dujon Sterling, a physical presence at the back. I think he'll be a good acquisition. Jack Butland isn't the one that stands out for me. 6'5", comes for crosses, big guy, good shot stopper. I think just lacks a bit of confidence, and hopefully, through this pre-season period that he's with the club, that's something that Michael Beale can certainly give to him. Just look at what he did with Cantwell. Cantwell came in out of favour at Norwich and is now obviously probably the best player in Scotland. There's still lots of work to do, isn't there? Absolutely, still lots of work to do. We need strikers, I think, 2 more. We need a central defender, a left-sided central defender to replace Ben Davis. We need wingers and possibly a left back if Borna Barisic moves on. Now, that is a rumour that is currently going around. Obviously, Borna has been tied up with the Croatian national team with the Nations Cup final, but he's now obviously that's finished. So there was rumours that he was negotiating a new contract. There now seems to be rumours that Rangers are ready to move him on and have Ridvan and perhaps another signing. So that's obviously all up in the air. Now, what we're going to do today is we're going to talk a little bit about Antonio Colak. We're going to talk a little bit about Scott Wright and John McLaughlin, players we actually do own. I'm going to provide you with a few updates on Jose Cifuentes, Josh Maja, and talk a little bit about Haji Wright as well. As Rangers obviously will have to now launch a new search for a striker, given that Cifuentes has turned down the club. So what do we know? So what is out there at this moment in time? So let's start with Antonio Colak. So the Croatian last season had a pretty decent season. I think it was 18 goals in all competitions, including goals in the Champions League qualifiers. But he only scored 3 times for Rangers after Beale's arrival. Yes, he was out injured a lot. I will give you that. Now, that was something that Michael Beale did talk about when he was asked about Antonio Colak. He talked about the need for Antonio to stay fit if he wants to be considered for a long-term place in the first team. His future, though, is currently awash with rumours as to whether he stays, whether he goes. Colak has perhaps indicated in stories and when he's been interviewed that he wants to stay and fight for a place in Glasgow, which is obviously a good one. But there's also a lot of discussion about the fact that a number of Bundesliga teams are showing an interest in Antonio Colak. And if they come in with a decent offer, Rangers may well be prepared to move on from Colak and sell him to raise extra funds, obviously, to fund team player acquisition and team development. Now Colak was first choice under Giovanni van Bronckhorst, so it seemed. And after Gio left, With Michael Beale seemed to turn more to Alfie, and then when Alfie fell out of favour, more to Fashion and Matondo. That there was a real, I don't know, feel amongst the fans and amongst a lot of the reporters on Rangers that, Beale didn't really fancy Colak, and Colak wasn't his type of player. He said he isn't a hybrid forward. He's not a player who can play out wide. He doesn't create his own chances. He relies on us to create for him. So there's that intention that perhaps that's not a Beale type player. And with Michael Beale seeming to want this split front striker, split wide strikers, he seems to want to play. That's certainly not something that Colak can do or is particularly good at. So that's obviously a reason why people are talking about him not being a Beale player, and the fact that Beale may actually accept an offer and move him on. The one Bundesliga club that seems to have come out and indicated an interest in Antonio Colak is Werder Bremen. They will be losing their top striker over the summer to one of the Saudi teams. Saudi Arabia, obviously, their team seems to be spending an awful lot of money developing their teams this summer. And it seems that the Werder Bremen top striker, I can't remember the guy's name now, it does escape me, is moving to Saudi. So that Colak has in fact been scouted by Bremen, and Bremen are paying an interest in Antonio Colak. No concrete offers yet, no concrete news on that, but it seems that Werder Bremen may well put a bid in for Colak. It then remains to be seen whether that bid is of a substantial enough amount to interest Rangers to allow him to move on. Okay, so let's talk about Scott Wright next. Now, according to a lot of the stories, Scott was done, he was dusted, he was off, he was going at the end of the season. Where was he going? Well, Preston North End. That appeared to be the indication from a lot of stories. However, he now is not going to Preston North End. Apparently, they put in a very low offer of about £500,000. Rangers are looking for £1 million. Rangers apparently they put another offer. I think it's about 600,000, 650,000. Again, it was turned down. Rangers want £1 million. And Wright is now staying at the club for the time being. Now, there is interest from other English Championship sides in Scott Wright, but it is very much about the valuation for that player being met. Now, Rangers clearly have valuations on players. They have that $5 million valuation on Glenn Kamara. I think there's probably a good chance that could be met with interest from Turkey and England in Kamara. There seems to be a number of clubs who are interested in Kamara. Now, when you have a number of clubs interested in a player, that can cause a bit of a bidding war, and that can obviously make sure that you then meet your asking price or even perhaps a little bit more than that for your players. Scott Wright obviously is a player who's been pretty much out of favour. Yes, he's been a bit part player from the bench, hasn't started, and I think, will be on the move if an offer comes in. But there's obviously a real possibility that if no one puts in that £1 million offer, Scott Wright could well still be at Rangers next season and probably be a squad player. Obviously, a lot is up in the air with obviously that Preston North End offer being turned down. But it is hoped, I think, that Rangers can garner £1 million for Scott Wright. Again, that will go towards player development. Apologies if you can hear yelling in the background. That is my nieces, and they have zero manners. Okay, so let's talk about John McLaughlin next, the goalkeeper. Now, Rangers have signed Jack Butland, they have Robbie McCrory, and they have Kieran Wright, who they signed to a new 2-year contract. So there is depth there to the team in terms of the goalkeeping position: Butland, McCrory, and Wright. Therefore, it seems like McLaughlin is the odd one out, and Rangers will attempt to move him on this summer. But according to a number of reports in the media today, Rangers are struggling to move McLaughlin on. Why? Well, somebody thought it was a good idea to give him a new contract up until summer 2024. So he is under contract until next summer. Now, the issue we've got there is the fact that McLaughlin is on fairly good wages, so I have read. Varying amounts. I don't want to talk, obviously, no concrete amounts. I'm not going to talk about something that's not concrete there. He obviously wants to stay on those wages, which you couldn't blame him. He's obviously coming towards the end of his career. He is a player who, wants to obviously earn a bit of money, bit of background money to sort of, to see him and his family right. And you can understand that. But at this moment in time, Rangers will want a fee for him, and McLaughlin will pretty much want to protect those wages, which obviously is putting an awful lot of teams in Scotland off. It's also putting off championship clubs as well. English championship clubs are not as wealthy as a lot of people think. It's really only the EPL that carry all the cash in England, and he's not going to be a keeper that attracts interest from the EPL. Rangers are going to be loath to pay up his contract. So McLaughlin is stuck in a bit of a limbo at this moment in time. We can't really get rid of him, and that obviously is an issue going forward. We don't want 4 goalkeepers. We don't need 4 goalkeepers. Kieran Wright, I think, will be the third choice. Second choice is probably going to be Robbie McCrory. First choice, obviously, Jack Butland, obviously, as long as he stays in form. But there is obviously a need to try and move McLaughlin on, and that may take a bit of creative accounting, a bit of creative negotiation with John McLaughlin. Okay, so they're players that we actually own, that we actually, have at the club at this moment in time. But what is going on with players that obviously we have been linked with? Now, let's start obviously with the biggest link, which is Jose Cifuentes. Now, according to all media reports coming out of the States, coming out of Scotland, Rangers are still very much interested in Jose Cifuentes. The reason no deal has been done in this short term is because Jose Cifuentes has been off with his country, with Ecuador. And the talk is very much that the deal will be concluded once he finishes and returns from international duty. Therefore, it is more likely to be announced next month after the start of pre-season training. But remember, Michael Beale did say that it would have to wait for one or two players and they wouldn't be perhaps there at the start of pre-season. He played well for Ecuador the other night. He chipped in with an assist for his teammate Pacho in Ecuador's 3-1 victory over Costa Rica. It is believed that Rangers will pay a £1.5 million compensation fee to LAFC to secure the early release of Cifuentes from his contract. But like I said, that looks like that deal will be done next month rather than this month. So that's where we're up to on the Jose Cifuentes deal. Okay, let's mention next Josh Maja. Josh Maja obviously is a player who very much interests Rangers. He's a player who is an outstanding talent. He's a great centre forward. He's certainly someone who, I think would contribute very heavily to Rangers. A centre forward, I think, would get 25 to 30 goals a season in Scotland. He's a very talented lad. He's good off both feet. He can come from the right wing, come from the left wing. He can play that wide striker role that Michael Beale seems to want to play. He's quick. He's intelligent. He's a very skillful player. 16 goals last season for Bordeaux in Ligue 2. Now, obviously, the Bordeaux situation is very complicated. The likelihood, even if the game was being replayed, is that Bordeaux would not go up. Maja has told Bordeaux that he does not want to sign a new contract if they stay in Ligue 2. Bordeaux have the option to extend if he goes into Ligue 1. That's what I understand by the stories that are coming out of France at this moment in time. The worry, obviously, is that further down the line, that it goes to a tribunal and Rangers are ordered to pay 5-6 million for the player. Then can we find that money at that short notice? Can we pay that money for the player? Obviously puts us in a difficult position. But the whole Maja situation will, I think, have to wait again till next month. That will be another one that will, I think, rumble on to next month once all the hearings have had in France. Again, that is looking at July time for those. So therefore, I think that he is another player who you are looking at having to wait on and being a July signing rather than being a signing to bring in for the start of pre-season, which I agree is worrying that our centre forward depth is at the moment is Sam Lammers, Antonio Colak, who could well be gone, Kemar Roof, who is always injured, and Fashion Sakala, who, Fashion is very, very much hit and miss. Goes from world beater to carpet beater in the blink of an eye. The other player that has interested a lot of Rangers fans is Haji Wright. Now, Haji Wright was heavily linked earlier in the summer with a move for Rangers. Villarreal were as well interested in Wright, and the problem was that it was felt that his Turkish team, Antalyaspor, were looking for around 10 million for him, which Rangers are not willing to meet. And apparently even Villarreal are not prepared to meet the £10 million price tag. 7 million being a more realistic number, apparently. Rangers will allegedly push out the boat to sign a striker for a bigger fee. That is what I'm hearing and reading in a number of media sources. Haji Wright last season had a pretty impressive season for his Turkish team in the Turkish Super League and in the Turkish Cup. So we look at his stats there. So 28 appearances, 15 goals, 3 assists. That's 18 goal contributions in 28 games. Pretty impressive. A goal every 159 minutes. In the Cup, 1 appearance, 1 goal. His team being knocked out early. Overall last season, 29 appearances, 16 goals, 3 assists. That's 19 goal contributions in 29 games, which is a very good return. He's skillful. He's quick for a big guy. He can play out wide. He can play the split striker role that Beale is looking for. So it remains to be seen, are Rangers prepared to spend the money on someone like Haji Wright, someone who could make a difference? Graham Souness obviously talked yesterday about being worried about the financial power of our neighbours that we don't like from across the city. But I think there is a need for Rangers to kind of, push out the boat a little bit. To speculate, to accumulate, I think, is the way we need to look at it. And Haji Wright could be, that player that we speculate to accumulate. There's a chance, obviously, a couple of years down the line, if he scores 25, 30 goals a season for 2 seasons in the SPL, the English clubs could come knocking, the foreign clubs could come knocking, and therefore, you can pretty much recoup your money that you paid for the player and probably paid the player in wages too. So Haji Wright does apparently remain a possibility. No concrete word from Rangers yet, but he does seem an interesting character. Now, in my personal opinion, this is just my personal opinion, it's not the opinion of James Bisgrove or Michael Beale or John Park or John Bennett or anyone at Rangers. I would like to see them go out and sign Maja and Wright. Really send a signal to the rest of the SPL, in particular that lot from across the city, that we mean business, that we're going to have a strike force to be feared next season. Not a strike force that is going to be powder puff, that is not going to take chances, that is going to be pretty much like last season's strike force, that we just weren't clinical enough. And something Michael Beale even talked about. And I think part of that is now trusting Beale, trusting his judgment, and trusting the process in terms of the players that he brings in. But I do feel that players like Maja and Wright would be acquisitions now that would come in and make a real difference and score goals for Rangers. That's what we need. That's what we've got to have for next season. Well, let me know what you think of all that we've discussed in this video as regards players we own, players we'd like to own, and perhaps, what would you like to see? Who would you like to see sign? Who would you like to see come in? Realistically, obviously, be realistic. We'd all love Kylian Mbappe, we'd all love Lionel Messi, but it just ain't going to happen, is it? Thank you so much for watching Glasgow Rangers Nation, where we bring you your team every single day. Please hit that sub, ring that notification bell. If you give the video a like, it would be greatly appreciated. Thanks for watching, and as always, remember, we are the people.